The old castle of Kethmoran sat on top of a tall cliff like a giant stone guard watching over the valley. Its thick walls had seen many battles over 1,000 years of Valyrian rule. Captain Hayes stood on the high wall, looking through his special glasses at the enemy camp spread out below. He counted their big guns and soldiers, doing the math that would tell him if anyone in the castle would live to see tomorrow's sun. "Their advance teams have reached our outer fence," said Lieutenant Foster. His voice was tight with worry, like a good soldier who knew they didn't have enough men to win this fight. Hayes put down his glasses and looked at the computer screen on his tablet. General Thane had set up his army perfectly, 3 whole groups of soldiers with big guns and flying machines. More than enough power to smash the old castle into tiny pieces in just a few hours. "How many people do we have?" Hayes asked, even though he already knew the answer would be bad. 187 Valyrian royal guards, 32 human helpers like us, and about 50 regular workers, Foster answered. "Plus Princess Hela, though I'm not sure if she makes us stronger or puts us in more danger." Hayes gave his lieutenant a sharp look. "The princess is why we're here. She's proven she can fight more than once during this war." Looking down into the castle's main yard, Hayes could see the Valyrian soldiers getting ready for battle. They worked with the same careful skill that had made the Royal Guard famous across this part of space. Their pointed ears moved as they focused on checking their weapons and finding the best spots to shoot from. Their skin showed pale blue patterns that meant they were calm and ready to fight. "Sir," Foster said more carefully, "I didn't mean to be rude about her. But what's our real plan here? Even if we somehow stop this attack, General Thane controls every big city on the planet. We're fighting a war that ended months ago. We just won't admit we lost." Hayes understood why his lieutenant felt frustrated. But losing badly didn't make their mission less important. Sometimes you fight wars you can't win because it's better to lose with honor than to give up without trying. "The princess won't surrender," Foster said. "Valyrian royal rules don't allow giving up to people who steal the throne." Hayes nodded sadly. Princess Hela had made her feelings clear in many war meetings. She would rather die fighting than make General Thane's stealing of power seem okay by surrendering. It was a good idea in theory, but it meant they had to fight battles that were more about making a point than staying alive. "Captain Hayes," called a beautiful voice from the yard below. Hayes looked down and saw Princess Hela walking toward them. She moved with the natural grace that all Valyrian royals had. Even after months of hiding and fighting dangerous battles, she still acted like someone born to rule. Her fancy royal clothes had been replaced with practical fighting gear, but you could still tell she was nobility. "Your Highness," Hayes said back, giving her a respectful nod that showed he respected her royal position without all the fancy ceremony that didn't make sense in their situation. "I need to talk with you alone," Princess Hela said. Her skin showed thin golden patterns that Hayes had learned meant urgent worry among her people. "There are things we must discuss before." She didn't finish talking, but Hayes knew what she meant. Before the final attack, before the end of the Valyrian royal family, before decisions became impossible because there would be no one left to make them. "Of course, Your Highness." "Lieutenant Foster, keep watching the enemy and tell me if anything changes in how they're set up." Hayes followed Princess Hela through hallways lined with beautiful wall hangings that showed centuries of Valyrian war victories. It was ironic decoration for what would probably be the place of their final defeat. The castle had been used as a royal vacation home for many generations. Its design showed the refined beauty that Valyrian culture valued even in defensive buildings. "Captain Rivik is standing guard outside my rooms," Princess Hela said as they walked. "He'll make sure no one bothers us." Hayes nodded, though he wondered what conversation could be so private that it needed complete secrecy. Captain Rivik of the Royal Guard was completely loyal to Princess Hila. His devotion to the crown went beyond personal comfort or safety in ways that Hayes found both admirable and somewhat strange compared to human military culture. They reached the princess's rooms where Captain Rivik stood perfectly still in his ceremonial armor. The deep blue and silver uniform marked him as a Valyrian royal guard. His pointed ears moved slightly as they got close, and his skin showed the neutral silver-white that meant professional alertness. Captain Rivik, Princess Hila said formally, "Please make sure we are not interrupted for anything less than an immediate battle emergency." "Of course, Your Highness," Rivik replied. His voice carried the absolute obedience that defined how he related to royal authority. As they went into her private rooms, Hayes noticed the contrast between the elegant furniture and the battle equipment that war had made necessary. Star maps covered delicate wooden tables, while communication gear sat awkwardly next to artifacts that had probably belonged to Valyrian royalty for centuries. "Captain Hayes," Princess Hila began, then stopped as if thinking about how to say what she wanted to say. "Marcus, what I'm about to discuss with you involves decisions that will affect both our peoples for generations to come." Using his first name got Hayes's attention. Princess Hila had always used formal titles during their months of working together. Whatever she wanted to discuss was clearly beyond normal military consultation. "I'm listening, Your Highness." Princess Hila moved to a locked cabinet and took out something wrapped in ceremonial cloth. "There are parts of Valyrian royal law that we haven't talked about. Emergency rules that were designed for situations exactly like what we face now." Hayes felt a sense that whatever she was about to show him would complicate his life in ways he couldn't yet imagine. But his respect for her judgment had grown to the point where he would listen to any idea, no matter how unusual. Princess Hila unwrapped the ceremonial cloth with careful respect, showing an artifact that took Hayes's breath away. The Valyrian royal crown was a masterpiece of ancient craftsmanship. Crystal formations seemed to capture and make light brighter, precious metals worked into patterns that looked like both organic growth and geometric precision, and embedded technology that pulsed with subtle energy. "This has been the symbol of legitimate Valyrian authority for over 2,000 years, Princess Hila said. Her voice carried the weight of thousands of years of tradition. "Every lawful ruler of our people has worn this crown, and every constitutional transfer of power has involved its formal presentation." Hayes stared at the artifact, understanding that he was looking at something beyond mere ceremonial jewelry. "It's beautiful, Your Highness, but I'm not sure why you're showing it to me." "Because, Marcus, there are rules in our ancient laws for emergency succession that were designed to preserve royal authority even under the most extreme circumstances." Her skin showed complex patterns that cycled between blue and gold, showing emotional states Hayes couldn't fully understand. "What kind of circumstances?" "The complete destruction of the royal bloodline. Invasion by forces that seek to eliminate constitutional government. Situations where normal succession rules would result in the permanent end of legitimate authority." Hayes felt the conversation moving toward territory that made him very uncomfortable. "Your Highness, you're still alive. The royal bloodline hasn't been destroyed. But it will be within hours." Princess Hila's skin shifted to deeper blue patterns that showed profound sadness. "General Thane has made his plans clear. Every member of the royal family will be killed to prevent future restoration attempts. My death isn't just personal tragedy. It's the end of constitutional government for the Valyrian people. There must be other options. Escape routes, loyal colonies, diplomatic sanctuary. All considered and all impossible," the princess interrupted gently. "Thane's forces control every spaceport, every communication relay, every possible way to escape. This fortress is our last stand because there is nowhere else to go." Hayes studied her alien features, noting the resignation mixed with determination that suggested someone who had accepted inevitable death while still planning for what lay beyond it. The emergency succession protocols, Princess Hila continued, allow for the transfer of royal authority to a trusted ally in circumstances where the bloodline cannot survive. The transfer creates a constitutional bridge, maintaining legitimate government until circumstances allow for proper restoration. Transfer to whom? Hayes asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. To someone who has proven absolute loyalty to the crown and the Valyrian people. Someone who understands the weight of constitutional responsibility. Someone who could preserve the legitimacy of royal authority even if he cannot immediately exercise its power. Hayes took a step backward, his human instincts recoiling from what her words implied. Your Highness, you can't be suggesting. I'm not suggesting, Marcus. I'm asking. Will you accept the burden of preserving Valyrian constitutional government until such time as proper restoration becomes possible? The request hit Hayes like a physical blow. I'm human. Your people's laws can't possibly allow for alien succession to the throne. The emergency protocols don't specify species requirements, Princess Hila replied. They focus on character requirements, loyalty, honor, commitment to constitutional principles. All qualities you've demonstrated repeatedly during our campaign. Hayes moved to the room's window, looking out at enemy positions that would begin their final assault within hours. Even if it were legally possible, what would be the practical benefit? I'd be a human wearing a Valyrian crown while hiding in whatever cave or bunker we could find. That's not government. It's political theater. It's hope, Princess Hila said simply. There are 17 Valyrian colonies and systems beyond Thane's reach. Legitimate royal authority properly transferred and witnessed could rally support for eventual liberation efforts. And if those colonies don't recognize a human's claim to the throne, then we will have lost nothing more than we're already losing. But if even some of them accept the legitimacy of emergency succession, the Valyrian resistance gains a constitutional foundation that could sustain it for generations. Hayes turned back to face her, noting the way the crown seemed to pulse with its own internal light. What would the transfer involve? A formal ceremony witnessed by at least one member of the royal guard. The physical presentation of the crown, which bonds with the recipient's bioelectric field. Spoken words that invoke the emergency protocols and create legal validity under our constitutional framework. And afterward you would be the constitutional monarch of the Valyrian people, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Her skin showed golden patterns that suggested hope mixed with profound sadness. Including the responsibility to preserve our legal traditions until circumstances allow for proper restoration to the bloodline. Hayes felt the weight of the decision settling around him like gravity. Accept, and he would become responsible for the constitutional future of an entire civilization. Refuse, and Princess Hila would die knowing that Valyrian legal tradition died with her. How long do we have? He asked. Thane's final assault will begin at dawn. Perhaps 4 hours. And Captain Rivik would serve as witness? If you accept, yes. His testimony would provide unquestioned legal validity for the transfer. Hayes looked again at the crown, understanding that the elegant artifact represented far more than ceremonial authority. It was the physical embodiment of an entire people's hope for constitutional government and eventual justice. There's something else you should know, Princess Hila said quietly. Once the crown accepts you, the bond cannot be broken except by death or formal abdication. You wouldn't be a temporary placeholder. You would be legitimately and permanently the constitutional monarch until you choose to transfer authority back to the bloodline. The full weight of what she was asking finally became clear to Hayes. Not temporary guardianship, but actual kingship with all its moral and legal implications. "For hours," he said finally. "Let me think about it." Princess Hila nodded, her skin showing patterns that suggested understanding mixed with desperate hope. "For hours, Marcus. Then we face whatever future remains for the Valyrian people." The 4 hours passed with agonizing slowness as Hayes wrestled with a decision that would affect not just his own life, but the constitutional future of an entire species. He spent time walking the battlements, consulting with his human advisors, and reviewing intelligence reports that confirmed what everyone already knew. General Thane's forces had positioned themselves for a final assault that would overwhelm the fortress's defenses within minutes of beginning. "Sir," Lieutenant Foster said during one of these tactical reviews, "permission to speak freely?" "Always, Lieutenant. Whatever the princess asked you to consider, I can see it weighing on you. If it's about evacuation routes or last-stand protocols, you should know that the men trust your judgment completely." Hayes appreciated Foster's loyalty, but the lieutenant's assumption about royal evacuation plans was far from the constitutional crisis that actually occupied his thoughts. "It's more complicated than tactical planning, Lieutenant." "Understood, sir. But whatever decision you make, the Human Advisory Unit will follow your lead." As dawn approached, Hayes found himself back in Princess Hila's chambers, where she waited with the crown resting on its ceremonial cloth. Captain Rivik remained at his post outside, unaware that the next few minutes would determine whether his oath of loyalty transferred to a human or died with the Valyrian bloodline. "You've decided," Princess Hila observed, reading his expression with the intuition that had made her an effective wartime leader. "I have," Hayes confirmed. "Though I still think this is the most insane political arrangement in recorded galactic history." Princess Hila's skin showed faint golden patterns that indicated relief mixed with gratitude. Constitutional government often requires insane arrangements when the alternative is permanent tyranny. "What exactly do I need to do?" "Kneel before the crown while I speak the formal words of transfer. When I place the crown on your head, it will bond with your bioelectric field and recognize you as the legitimate bearer of royal authority. Captain Rivik will witness the ceremony and swear the Royal Guard's continued loyalty." Hayes moved to the position she indicated, noting how the crown's internal light seemed to pulse more rapidly as he approached. "And after that?" "After that, you'll be King Marcus of the Valyrian people, with the constitutional authority to preserve our legal traditions until circumstances allow for restoration." "King Marcus," Hayes repeated, testing how the title sounded. "That's going to take some getting used to." Princess Hila lifted the crown with both hands, her movements displaying the reverence of someone handling a sacred artifact. "By the ancient laws of our people, in circumstances of extreme emergency that threaten the extinction of constitutional government, I, Princess Hila, rightful heir to the Valyrian throne, do hereby transfer royal authority to Marcus Hayes of Earth, who has proven his loyalty to our people and his commitment to the principles of just governance." Hayes felt a strange tingling sensation as she placed the crown on his head, followed by a more intense sensation as the artifact's embedded technology interfaced with his nervous system. The crown seemed to become weightless while simultaneously feeling more substantial than any physical object he'd ever worn. "The crown accepts you," Princess Hila said with wonder, her skin blazing with golden patterns. "You are now the constitutional monarch of the Valyrian people." The room's door burst open as Captain Rivik entered to report the beginning of the enemy assault, his words dying on his lips as he saw Hayes wearing the sacred crown. For a moment that seemed to stretch forever, the Royal Guard captain stared at the human wearing the symbol of ultimate Valyrian authority. Hayes braced himself for accusations of sacrilege or demands for immediate arrest. Instead, Captain Rivik's training took over as he recognized the formal transfer that had taken place. His pointed ears flickered as he processed the unprecedented situation, and his skin showed rapid color changes that indicated complex emotional processing. "Your Majesty," Captain Rivik said finally, dropping to one knee in a formal salute reserved for reigning monarchs. The royal guard acknowledges the legitimacy of emergency succession and swears continued loyalty to the crown. Hayes felt the weight of centuries of tradition settling around him as Captain Rivik's words made the transfer official. "Captain, I appreciate your loyalty, but I want you to understand I never sought this authority, and I have no intention of displacing the rightful bloodline. The circumstances that created the necessity for emergency succession are understood, Your Majesty. The royal guard serves the crown itself, not the individual who wears it. Our oath binds us to preserve royal authority regardless of the person who bears that responsibility." Princess Hila moved to the window as artillery shells began falling in the courtyard below. "The final assault has begun. Your Majesty, you need to escape with the crown intact. The royal bloodline ends here, but constitutional government can survive if you reach the outer colonies." Hayes wanted to protest that she was still the rightful ruler, but the crown's influence made him understand the legal reality. The transfer was complete and irreversible under Valyrian law. He was now responsible for preserving their constitutional traditions, whether he felt ready for that responsibility or not. "Captain Rivik," Hayes said, his voice carrying new authority that surprised him, "what are our evacuation options?" The escape tunnels beneath the fortress lead to a concealed landing pad where a small transport waits. "If we can reach it, Your Majesty can escape while the princess leads the final defense." "No," Hayes said firmly. "We all escape together, or we make our stand here as a unit." "Your Majesty," Princess Hila said with gentle firmness, "my death here serves the greater good by ensuring that Thane believes he has eliminated the royal bloodline. Your survival with the crown intact preserves the possibility of future restoration." Hayes realized that wearing the crown meant accepting responsibilities that transcended personal preference or emotional attachment. Princess Hila was asking him to let her sacrifice herself for the preservation of constitutional government, and his new role as monarch required him to make decisions based on the greater good rather than individual loyalty. "Captain Rivik," Hayes said finally, "prepare the escape route. But understand that as long as I wear this crown, the royal guard serves the constitutional monarchy, not any individual's martyrdom complex." "Understood, Your Majesty," Rivik replied, though his skin showed patterns that suggested approval of Hayes's approach to royal authority. As enemy forces breached the fortress's outer defenses, Hayes began to understand that accepting the crown had changed more than his legal status. It had fundamentally altered his perspective on leadership, responsibility, and the weight of decisions that affect entire civilizations. The escape through the fortress's ancient tunnel system became a lesson in the practical realities of royal authority during wartime. Hayes found himself making decisions that balanced immediate survival with long-term constitutional implications, while Captain Rivik's absolute loyalty provided both protection and guidance through protocols he'd never expected to need. "Your Majesty," Captain Rivik said as they navigated the narrow passages, "the transport can reach the outer colonies, but establishing legitimate government will require formal recognition from colonial administrators." "How likely is that recognition?" Hayes asked, noting how the crown's weight seemed both physical and metaphysical, a constant reminder of responsibilities that extended far beyond personal survival. "Variable," Rivik replied honestly. "Some colonies will accept emergency succession protocols without question. Others may demand proof of legitimacy that goes beyond legal technicalities." Behind them, the sounds of battle echoed through the stone corridors as Princess Hila led the fortress's final defense. Hayes struggled with the decision to abandon her, even though he understood the strategic necessity of preserving royal authority for future restoration efforts. The princess chose this path to preserve constitutional government, Rivik observed, apparently sensing Hayes's internal conflict. Honoring her sacrifice requires successful execution of the mission she enabled. They reached the concealed landing pad where a small but well-equipped transport waited, its engines already warming for immediate departure. Hayes paused at the entrance, looking back toward the fortress where explosions marked the progress of General Thane's assault. "Captain Rivik," he said suddenly, "in your judgment, would Princess Hela want me to preserve her life or preserve the crown?" "The crown, Your Majesty, without question. Her entire life has been devoted to constitutional principles that transcend individual survival." Hayes felt the weight of kingship settling more deeply around him as he made a decision that went against every human instinct for loyalty and personal attachment. "Then we proceed as planned. But understand that as king, I'm responsible for both preserving the crown and ensuring that Princess Hela's sacrifice serves the greater good." The transport lifted off as the fortress's main towers collapsed under artillery bombardment, carrying Hayes away from the last stand of Valyrian royalty toward an uncertain future among the outer colonies. Captain Rivik served as both pilot and advisor, his expertise in royal protocol proving invaluable as Hayes began to understand the practical implications of his new status. "Your Majesty," Rivik said as they entered hyperspace, "there are matters of immediate concern regarding royal authority and constitutional continuity." "Such as?" "The need to establish formal government structure, communication with loyal colonial administrators, and protocols for eventual restoration to the bloodline." Rivik's skin showed the neutral patterns that indicated professional discussion. "Also, the practical matter of Your Majesty's education in Valyrian constitutional law and royal responsibilities." Hayes realized that accepting the crown had been only the beginning of a transformation that would require learning to think and act like a monarch while maintaining his human perspectives and values. "How long do we have before reaching the first colony?" 18 hours to Veltrin Prime, the largest and most politically stable of the outer colonies. Governor Thorin has maintained neutrality during the Civil War, but his loyalty to constitutional government is unquestioned. "And if he doesn't recognize human authority to wear the Valyrian crown?" Captain Rivik was quiet for a moment, his skin showing patterns that suggested careful consideration. "Then, Your Majesty will need to demonstrate the legitimacy of emergency succession. Through action rather than argument." The next several hours passed in intensive education as Captain Rivik explained the intricacies of Valyrian constitutional law, royal protocol, and the practical responsibilities of monarchical government. Hayes found himself absorbing information about taxation authority, military command structure, diplomatic protocol, and judicial oversight, the mundane but crucial details that made the difference between ceremonial figurehead and effective governance. "The crown itself provides certain capabilities that assist in royal duties," Rivik explained, noting how the artifact's embedded technology interfaced with Hayes's nervous system. Enhanced processing of complex information, intuitive understanding of constitutional principles, and communication abilities that transcend normal biological limitations. Hayes could feel the crown's influence subtly affecting his thinking, providing context and perspective that his human education had never included. "It's teaching me to think like a king. More precisely, it's teaching Your Majesty to think like a constitutional monarch, someone whose authority derives from law rather than personal power, whose responsibilities extend beyond immediate self-interest." As they approached Veltrin Prime, Hayes prepared for his first test as the unlikely king of an alien people. The colony's response would determine whether Princess Hela's sacrifice had preserved constitutional government or merely created an elaborate fiction that would collapse under political reality. Governor Theorin's initial response will set the precedent for other colonies, Rivik warned. "Acceptance establishes Your Majesty's legitimacy throughout Valyrian space. Rejection could fragment the resistance and eliminate hope for eventual restoration." The transport's communication system activated as they entered the colony's sensor range, requesting identification and stating their purpose. Hayes realized that the next few minutes would determine whether he was a king in exile with legitimate authority or simply a human wearing stolen jewelry. Governor Thorin, Hayes said into the communication device, his voice carrying authority that surprised him, this is King Marcus of the Valyrian people, seeking sanctuary and recognition under emergency succession protocols. The response came after a pause that felt like eternity. Your Majesty, Veltrin Prime recognizes your legitimate authority and offers full support for the preservation of constitutional government. Welcome to your kingdom in exile. Captain Rivik's skin blazed with golden patterns as he turned to Hayes with something approaching reverence. Your Majesty, the crown has found its rightful bearer. Princess Hila's sacrifice has preserved not just our legal traditions, but hope for the future of our people. Hayes felt the truth of those words settling into his consciousness as the crown's influence helped him understand the magnitude of what had been accomplished. He was no longer just a human military advisor. He had become the constitutional bridge between Valyrian past and future, the guardian of an entire civilization's hope for eventual justice and restoration. The transport landed on Veltrin Prime as the local sun set, painting the colony's crystalline architecture in shades of gold and amber that seemed to welcome their new king home. Hayes understood that his real education in monarchy was just beginning, but Captain Rivik's unwavering loyalty and the crown's guidance provided foundations for learning to bear responsibilities he had never imagined accepting. Princess Hila's whispered words in the shadow chamber had changed everything, not just his legal status, but his fundamental understanding of duty, sacrifice, and the weight of preserving hope across the vast distances that separated civilizations among the stars.